My parents gave my twin sister a brand new BMW for our 18th birthday. When they handed me a single $2 bill, I knew it was over. So I packed my bag and left home forever at 2 a.m. while they were sleeping. The bow was the size of a prize-winning pumpkin and twice as garish, a screaming, velvety red parasite squatting on the hood of the pearl-white BMW. The driveway floodlights, installed specifically for security and aesthetics, hit the metallic paint and refracted, turning the entire damp lawn into a sterile, blinding glare. My sister, Seraphina, was vibrating. She produced a sound, a high-pitched, ultrasonic shriek that I'd spent 18 years learning to tune out, that threatened to shatter the sliding glass door to the patio. "Oh, my God. You didn't?" "We did, sweetie," Dad said, beaming. He dangled the keys from one finger, the little silver logo winking in the light. "Happy 18th. Mom was already filming, her phone's flash adding a series of painful, strobing pops to the visual assault. The late-night air, thick with the scent of cut grass and impending rain, was suddenly choked with the smell of new leather, hot plastic, and Mom's cloying rose-petal perfume. It all layered sickeningly over the lingering sugar scent of the funfetti cake we'd had hours earlier. I felt the grit of the asphalt driveway through the thin, worn soles of my sneakers. My hands were jammed so deep into my hoodie pocket that my fingernails scraped the rough denim of my jeans. They cooed as Seraphina, tears of genuine, ecstatic joy streaming down her face, slid into the driver's seat. The engine turned over with a low, expensive thrum that vibrated in my teeth. It was a sound that said money, a sound that said value, a sound that said her. The engine cut off. In the ringing silence that followed, all three of them turned to me. "Oh right, my birthday, I'd almost forgotten." Seraphina and I were twins, the universe's sickest, most poorly executed joke. She got the symmetrical features, the cascade of blonde hair, and the effortless C-average that charmed every teacher. I got the crooked smile, the mousy brown mop, and the disappointing habit of correcting my history teacher. "And for you, Elara," Mom announced, her voice bright and brittle. The camera, I noted, swung toward me, but was aimed slightly at the ground, as if she was already bored. Dad cleared his throat. He reached into his own pocket, not the one that had held the key fob, but the one where he kept change, receipts, and lint. He pulled out a single, folded bill. He pressed it into my open palm. It was a $2 bill, soft from being washed in a pair of jeans, folded into a sharp, decisive crease. "We know how you love history," Dad said, gesturing vaguely at my face. "A little something for your collection." My mouth filled with the taste of old pennies. "History, right, because I read books." Seraphina gets $40,000 of German engineering for being pretty, and I get the approximate street value of a large gas station coffee for being smart. Collect this. The crinkle of the bill as my fingers instinctively closed on it sounded obscensely loud. Seraphina, too busy stroking the Alcantara-wrapped steering wheel to pay attention, had already named the car Pearl. "Thanks," I said. The word felt like swallowing sand. I didn't go back to the patio. The remnants of the cake sat on the kitchen counter, the neon-pink frosting sweating under the track lighting. I went to my room. The $2 bill lay on my nightstand, a limp green insult. This wasn't new. It was just louder. It was the cheap plastic participation trophies from middle school track while Seraphina got private horseback riding lessons. It was the endless, "You're so responsible, Elara, you'll get scholarships," while her art camp tuition was paid without a second thought. It was the constant, exhausting, unspoken assumption that I, the mature one, needed nothing. The BMW wasn't a gift. It was a summary. A final invoice for 18 years of services rendered and services found wanting. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a houseplant they'd miraculously kept alive, self-sufficient, quiet, needing only the occasional splash of water and apparently $2. The sarcastic, witty part of my brain, the part that usually narrated these injustices with biting commentary, went silent. It was replaced by a cold, quiet hum. It wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. The house fell into its deep night silence. The only sound was the refrigerator's low drone. I looked at my phone. The screen glowed, 1:59 a.m. My hand didn't shake. I pulled my old canvas duffel from the back of the closet. It smelled faintly of lake water and sunscreen from my last solo camping trip, the only vacation I'd had in 3 years. I packed with methodical silence. 3 pairs of jeans, all my black t-shirts, my laptop, the charger, the small, heavy box with the $1,400 I'd saved from 2 years at the diner, my toothbrush. I left the $2 bill on the pillow, a tip for the maid service. At 2 a.m. exactly, I stood by my bedroom door, the duffel heavy on my shoulder. I pulled out my phone, its blue light painting a sterile square on my face. I opened Mom, tapped the 3 dots, block contact. A small, emotionless pop-up, are you sure? My thumb didn't hesitate, block. I opened Dad, block contact. Are you sure? Yes, I opened Seraphina. Her contact photo was a new selfie, taken from the driver's seat of the BMW, her tongue sticking out. My finger hovered, she won't even notice. I blocked her anyway. I didn't bother with the stares. I eased my window open, the track groaning softly in protest, and slung my leg over the sill. The shingles of the porch roof were cold and gritty beneath my palms, rough against the denim of my jeans. The night air was sharp, smelling of damp grass and the distant, metallic tang of the interstate. I dropped the duffel onto the lawn. It landed with a soft, satisfying thud. I shimmied down the trellis, ignoring the scrape of a rose thorn against my wrist. I didn't look back at the house. I didn't have a BMW, but I had my 2004 Civic, bought with my own money, smelling of stale coffee and me. The engine turned over with a low, reliable cough. As I pulled onto the empty, moonlit street, my phone screen remained dark. Silent. No frantic calls I couldn't receive. No texts I'd never read. Just the hum of my own tires on the asphalt, and a sudden, terrifying, intoxicating lightness in my chest. The road stretched out in front of me, a long, dark ribbon promising nothing, which was suddenly so much better than what I'd left behind. I drove for an hour, fueled by a buzzing, hollow-cord adrenaline. The interstate was a black void populated by the occasional high-beam glare of a long-haul truck. I had nowhere to go, which was precisely the point. When my eyelids started to feel like sandpaper, I pulled off at an exit that promised gas and lodging. I bypassed the respectable-looking Marriott and aimed for the Sleepy Z Inn, a 2-story block of faded beige misery whose sign had a flickering S and a permanently dark Z. The night clerk, a man who looked like he'd been carved from a block of tallow, didn't look up from his tiny, buzzing television. He slid a form across the counter. I filled it out, Elara M, one-night cash. My room was on the second-floor walkway. The key card lock was sticky. I shoved the door open into a wave of cold air that smelled of industrial bleach, stale cigarettes, and something vaguely fungal. The comforter on the double bed was a stiff, brown and orange geometric nightmare, and the carpet had the texture of a dried-out sponge. I dropped my duffel on the floor and locked the door, sliding the flimsy metal chain across. The clink of the chain sounded deafening in the small room. I sat on the edge of the bed. The springs beneath me groaned in protest. My phone, plugged into the wall, was a dead black rectangle on the nightstand. This was the first test. The silence was an abyss. The urge to unblock just one number, just to see the inevitable, frantic "where are you," was a physical itch. A part of me, the small, pathetic part that still wanted the funfetti cake, craved the panic. It wanted the proof that I mattered enough to be missed. I clenched my fists until my nails left crescents in my palms. No, panic is not love. I didn't check. I stripped off my hoodie, kicked off my sneakers, and slid under the stiff, cold sheets, still in my jeans and t-shirt. I lay there, staring at the textured ceiling, listening to the thrum of the ice machine down the walkway and the distant roar of the interstate. The light from the parking lot cast a sickly orange glow through the gap in the curtains. I was 18, I had $1,400, a car that might pass inspection, and a duffel bag of black t-shirts. It was, I thought, as the first wave of genuine, bone-deep terror washed over me, a start. The sun came up as a smear of watery gray light through the grimy window. My mouth tasted like the motel carpet. I took a shower that fluctuated between scalding and arctic, dried off with a towel as thin and soft as a paper napkin, and left. By 7:30 a.m., I was at the Blue Plate Diner, my 8 a.m. shift. The blue plate smelled of frying bacon, burnt coffee, and the lemony sweet tang of industrial floor cleaner. It was a smell that, until this morning, I had merely tolerated. Today, it smelled like a paycheck. Maeve, the owner, was already at the counter, her steel-wool hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was a woman in her 50s, with forearms covered in a latticework of old burn scars, and a face that looked like it had never smiled, only smirked. She glanced at the clock as I pushed through the door. "You're early. Couldn't sleep," I said, grabbing my apron from the hook. The familiar weight of it, the starchy crisp tie around my waist, was a strange comfort. "Coffee's fresh," was all she said. I worked on autopilot. The morning rush was a blur of motion and sound. The scrape of plates being stacked, the clatter of cutlery into the bus tub, the slosh of coffee as I filled mug after mug. Miss, this toast is burnt." I turned, my face automatically pulling into the stiff, bright smile I reserved for customers. "I'm so sorry about that, sir. Let me get you a new order right away." "His day is ruined by pumpernickel," my internal narrator chimed in, finally awake. "My entire life just imploded, and this man is on the verge of an aneurysm over toast." The sheer, staggering absurdity of it all was almost funny. Here I was, a legal adult and a functional runaway pouring coffee for men who had probably just left houses like the one I'd fled. I was invisible, a pair of hands, a walking apron. I could feel Maeve's eyes on me as I moved between the tables and the kitchen pass. She saw everything. She saw the tremor in my hands when I refilled the creamers. She saw that I was wearing the same jeans as yesterday. She saw that I didn't check my phone. Not once. She didn't say a word. She just slapped an extra-large slice of blueberry pie on a plate at noon and pushed it down the counter at me. "Eat, you look like a ghost." The lunch rush was tapering off when the bell on the diner door jingled. It wasn't the light jingle-jingle of a customer. It was a heavy, purposeful sound, followed by the solid thud of boots on the linoleum. The entire diner went silent. The sizzle of the flat top was the only sound left. I turned, a pot of coffee in my hand. A cop was standing just inside the door. He was young, with a tired face and that "I've seen it all" posture that all cops seem to master. His eyes scanned the room and landed, inexorably, on me. "Elara." Mortification was a physical heat. It crawled up my neck and set my face on fire. Every customer, every cook turned to stare. I put the coffee pot down and walked toward him. "Yes, ma'am, I need you to step outside with me for a moment." "Ma'am." A new and horrifying development. I followed him out onto the sizzling hot pavement of the parking lot. The air was thick with humidity and the smell of hot asphalt. "Your parents filed a wellness check," he said, flipping open a small notebook. "Said you left home last night, or, early this morning." "I'm 18, I said. My voice was flat. "As of yesterday." "Yeah, they mentioned that," he sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Look, kid, I just need to visually confirm you're not in a ditch somewhere. You're not in a ditch. Are you safe? You in any trouble?" "I'm safe, I'm not in trouble." "You, gonna call him?" he tried, gesturing with his pen. "No." He looked at me for a long, appraising second. He saw the motel towel lint still clinging to my black t-shirt. He saw the stubborn set of my jaw. He saw that I was 18 and there was nothing he could do. "Okay," he said, snapping the notebook shut. "Well, I'll report that you've been found, and that you're 18. Have a good day, ma'am." He got back in his cruiser and left. I stood in the parking lot, vibrating with a new kind of anger. Not the hot, impulsive anger of yesterday, but a cold, hard, clarifying rage. They hadn't called my phone, they couldn't. They hadn't driven to the diner. They hadn't called a friend. They sent a cop. They made it official. They turned their private, familial failure into a public spectacle for a diner full of strangers. The shift ended at 4. The diner was empty, a quiet battlefield of dirty plates and crumpled napkins. The air smelled of stale onions and floor cleaner. I was wiping down the vinyl booths, my movements wooden. Maeve was at the counter, hunched over her ledger, a cigarette dangling from her lips. "Cop thing was ugly," she said, not looking up. The smoke curled around her head. I just nodded, my back to her. I kept wiping. "You're 18, you're jumpy. You're carrying a duffel bag I saw you shove in your locker this morning. And you're staying at the Sleepy Z." I froze, rag in hand. "How?" Their towels are thin as paper and smell like a swimming pool, she said, finally turning her head. Her eyes were sharp. I can see the logo on the one you used to wipe your face in the break room, so you're done there. It wasn't a question. I got a room upstairs, Maeve said, turning back to her book. She tapped her pen against a column of numbers. It's a shithole, was a storage closet for the first owner. Got a hot plate, a window, and a cot. Bathrooms shared with the night prep guy, but he's clean. It's yours if you want it. I just stood there, my mind blank. 50 a week, she continued, her voice a low monotone. I'll take it right off your paycheck, keys on the hook by the register. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath. I let it out. The generosity was so practical, so devoid of the suffocating pity I'd been dreading, that it almost floored me. She wasn't offering a handout. She was offering a solution. A life raft built of plywood and drywall. Okay, I said, my voice was a croak. Good. She took a long drag of her cigarette. Now go get your stuff from that Fleabag motel, you smell like it. The room was a shithole, but it was an honest shithole. It was at the top of a narrow, steep set of stairs behind the kitchen. It smelled of dust, old cardboard, and faintly, permanently, of the onions and garlic from the kitchen vents below. There was a narrow cot, a small, scarred wooden dresser, and a single window. I walked over to the window. It overlooked the diner's parking lot and the highway beyond. The neon blue plate diner sign, just now flickering to life in the twilight, cast a buzzing, electric blue and pink glow into the room. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I threw my duffel on the cot. The springs squeaked in protest. I sat down, the lumpy mattress compressing under me. This was it, my first apartment. I pulled out my phone. The battery was at 40%. My fingers felt heavy, detached from my arm. I went to Seraphina's contact. I held my thumb over the button just to see. I tapped unblock contact. The phone exploded. It was like I'd kicked a hornet's nest. The screen lit up, vibrating violently in my hand as a stream of texts, 37 of them, poured in over the diner's spotty Wi-Fi. 11:04 a.m. Mom is having a full-on meltdown, 11:05 a.m. Where are you, 11:20 a.m. Dad is calling the cops, this is so stupid, 12:15 p.m. The police. Are you crazy? 12:17 p.m. You're so dramatic, Elara, holy shit, 12:30 p.m. Are you trying to ruin my birthday? 1 p.m. Mom is literally crying, 2:15 p.m. Fine, whatever, be that way, 3:30 p.m. BTW, did you take my black heels? I can't find them, I read the last one. My black heels. A laugh bubbled up in my chest. It was a rusty, dry sound I didn't recognize. I looked around my little, dusty, onion-scented room, bathed in the glow of the neon sign. I looked back at the phone, still vibrating with a missed call from Dad. I tapped the 3 dots by Seraphina's name. Block contact. I tapped the 3 dots by Dad. Block contact. I plugged my phone into the wall, the charger brick sparking a little in the old outlet. I kicked off my sneakers and lay back on the cot, hands behind my head. The neon sign buzzed. The floorboards vibrated slightly from the freezer unit in the kitchen below. It was the best night's sleep I'd had in my life.